All right. Hey, everybody. It's Nikki with Revive Jewelry. And I am here today with Liz Marfia Ash, who is the president and founder of the Grin2b Foundation. So I am going to turn it over to you, Liz, so you can introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Grin2b and what you guys do.
Hi, Nikki. Thank you for
Hi.
having me. Hi, everybody watching. Sorry the Instagram Live didn't work out.
Yeah.
So I'm Liz Marfia Ash, and I am the president of Grin2b Foundation. And I guess we'll start out with what is Grin2b Foundation. So we are a nonprofit, and we was formed by myself and my husband and several other parents whose children all have Grin2b related neurodevelopmental disorder. And so my daughter, Lucy, she's 6. She turns 7 next week. And yeah, yay. And she was diagnosed with Grin2b back in 2014. She was 18 months old. And so when she was diagnosed, they just said, there wasn't even a name for it. It wasn't even called the terrible long name that we have now, Grin2b related neurodevelopmental disorder. It was simply just, she has a mutation on her Grin2b gene. And so it was very shocking and very traumatic. And, there was no organization, there was no website, there was no nonprofit, there was no just information that was easy for parents to digest. It was just, this is what your child has. It's very, very rare. We were told 10 people had it, other than Lucy. And there was no, medication she could take. There was no treatment plan. It was just, this is what she has, kind of, good luck. Not much you can do other than therapy. Sorry. So we did not expect that at all. By that point, we expected she would get diagnosed with something, but I just really naively thought it was going to be, some syndrome name or some disorder name, and that they would be like, here's where you go for help. Here's, what kind of treatment plan you would need. And here's a support group. Like, I just thought everything was going to be handled like a path. There was going to be a path. And so it was very shocking when there was no path and no way forward. And we didn't really know. I especially didn't know what to do with that because I'm very like a plan-centered person. Like, I need to know what we're doing all the time when we're doing it. I suspect you're the same way.
Yeah.
I know you're very organized. So yeah, we kind of just fumbled around for a while and didn't know what to do. And we found a few parents on Facebook through another mom had created a parent support group. And I was the second person to join that group. And then slowly, like, some other families found us. And so our little community kind of grew on Facebook for like a year or two until we, I think, went from like 2 to 30 to 80 within a couple of years. And this is families worldwide. And then, I just felt like we needed to do something. I felt like we needed more. I didn't want parents to have the same experience we did, where when you get the Grin2b diagnosis and you go home and you Google it and you find nothing.
Yeah.
I just really didn't want anyone to go through that anymore. So, I started writing the website because I thought, well, people, at the very least, people can Google it and find this website, and it's friendly and it's accessible and it's got this cute little bee, and it gives people like a little spark of hope and some information that is written in just plain language for parents that don't have a science background, which is me. Then after we made the website first, and it was just an informational website. And then kind of right after that, we were like, well, we should probably start a foundation and make this more an official organization. So we teamed up with some other parents. And so our mission has 3 main pillars, and that's supporting families. That was our number one goal from the start. We really want to support families and give them hope and encouragement and resources. Awareness. We're really big on promoting awareness, because obviously Grin2b is rare, just rare diseases in general. There's 7,000 rare diseases, which I didn't know before any of this,
Yeah.
and now I know that Grin2b is rare, but there's so many other different rare genetic disorders that have even less cases than what we know. And so collectively, they're not rare when you think about 7,000 rare disorders altogether.
Yeah.
So wait, I'm going back through my three. So we did support, awareness, and then of course research, funding research for treatments and better care, and hope for the future, maybe one day a cure.
Yeah, it's so interesting, when you first, I forgot to give people a background of how we know each other, but for everybody who is watching, Liz actually was worked with my husband years and years ago in TV, and they maintained a friendship. And then I started my company, and Liz kind of caught onto it through my husband sharing things, and she started following me. We kind of started interacting with each other on social media, and then Liz reached out to me for this project that we're going to talk about later, and told me and educated me about Grin2b. And I had no idea. And like you're saying, 7,000 rare genetic disorders. I didn't know there were that many. You just educated me about that now. But it's so interesting when you start learning about these things. And, with my company, I'm always like, I want to help everyone and I want to help everything. So I totally relate to your position where you were like, I'm not the only one that's going to need this info. So it's wonderful that you have created this foundation to try to understand better and help more parents, and also try to change, the prognosis in the future. So bravo.
Thank you.
Totally. So for people who are watching that don't know exactly what the Grin2b disorder, if I can say that a little bit shorter,
Yes,
is,
you can.
if can you explain exactly what it is and how it's diagnosed?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not going to get too into the weeds about it, the genetics, because I wouldn't do it justice anyway, since I'm not a scientist or geneticist. But so to boil it down, so we all have chromosomes, right? And on each chromosome, there's hundreds to thousands of genes. So on the 12th chromosome is the Grin2b gene. So Grin2b, that name itself, is just the name of a gene. And so everyone has it. Everyone technically has Grin2b, the gene, right? And so this gene turns out very important. Some genes have more of an important function than other ones. And so Grin2b is actually part of a family of 7 Grin genes. Wow. They all start with the word Grin, and then they have different numbers and letters after them. And so this entire family of genes is just very important for brain development. Okay. So what happens is, so Grin2b, basically the function is it creates a protein. This is in real, layman's terms. Mm-hmm. Creates a protein that forms receptors that are responsible for sending messages in the brain. So what happens is, shortly after conception, a mutation occurs on the Grin2b gene, and it just happens spontaneously. There's no, it's not passed down from the parent. There's no real known cause. It's just a thing that just randomly happens. And so when I talk about a mutation, it could mean that a portion of the gene either got, deleted or duplicated, or just like a small portion of the genetic code could have gotten rearranged. And so any change on it, whether it's big or little, has a really, unfortunately, detrimental effect to a child's development. So the change that happens is what causes then Grin2b related neurodevelopmental disorder. Mm-hmm. Which I only laugh because, for so long we wanted it to have a name because it was so confusing to be like, well, she just has Grin2b. But then we got a name, and it's so long and so hard to say. We still just say Grin2b. Yeah. So the disorder then, the way it affects children. So the most common symptoms are low muscle tone, which impacts their ability to do, gain physical milestones. So physical milestones are very hard to reach. Sometimes they're not reached, or they're reached way later in life. Speech delays are very common. A lot of the kids are nonverbal. My daughter is one of those ones that's nonverbal. And then intellectual disability. And then additional symptoms can be seizures, behavioral problems, ADHD, anxiety, sensory processing issues, sleep problems. There's like a huge laundry list of symptoms additional symptoms on our website that don't necessarily affect every child. Vision problems are very common as well. And then Grin2b is one of the genes that is commonly linked to autism. So some kids will receive a secondary diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. Generally those that don't, they may be described as having autistic-like traits. So that there's a lot of overlap with that.
Okay, that's very interesting. So how would someone be diagnosed with Grin2b related disorder?
Right, yeah. So the diagnosis really can only be done through a genetic test. You really couldn't, a doctor couldn't really like look at a child and look at their list of symptoms and say, oh, you're nonverbal and you have intellectual disability. Like you probably have Grin2b, because, obviously those are very common symptoms of many other genetic disorders, including autism. So you really can't just like clinically look at a child and assess them and diagnose them. It really has to be done through some form of genetic test, which is, essentially it's just a blood test. So then they look at like genes and see which genes have changes on them. And then, you could have a change on, 5 different genes, and maybe some of the genes, that change just doesn't even affect you, because maybe that gene's not as important as a gene that affects, the way your brain functions. So they can kind of look and check each gene and then look in the, I don't know what you'd call it, like a database, I guess, of genes, and see like, okay, there's a history on this Grin2b gene. There's a lot of cases that are similar to this child's case. So, that's kind of how they can determine it based on that. So if you don't get a genetic test, you wouldn't get this diagnosis. And so that's how we know there are probably many people out there that have a Grin2b diagnosis that don't know they have it, because, maybe they've been just diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. And especially there can be, older children or adults, because the genetic testing, we got it done, as I said, 6 years ago, and it was kind of just becoming more like prevalent around that. I think it was sort of existed for a while, but it was really hard to get it covered by insurance. Mm-hmm. And at least I was told 6 years ago was that it was kind of starting to become more covered, because otherwise a lot of people just wouldn't do it, because I think it could be like $10,000 to $20,000. And then, so someone who was born, 30, 40 years ago wouldn't have had an option to do genetic testing. And so there could be people in their 30s and 40s that are just diagnosed with autism or intellectual disability that could really, in fact, have Grin2b. So we know about 250, roughly cases worldwide, but it's really, a lot higher than that.
Yeah, that's so interesting. It seems like, it's a fairly new disorder that they've identified. So there are going to be, more cases that pop up now that they know that, we're scientifically advanced enough and it's covered by insurance and stuff like that. There's going to just continue to be a rise of, unfortunately, cases that are going to be identified as this, but it's also a blessing, because then once you identify that, okay, this is where we are niched in, and this is what we need to focus on for our child. So, when you are getting that genetic test, you mentioned that it's something that happens spontaneously at conception. So that would be, the genetic test would have to be done on the child after they're born. It wouldn't be something that would be done, like I couldn't go get a genetic test and find out like, oh, I have a chance of having a child that is going to have this.
Right. So yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, because, I've had 3 kids and I've done the prenatal genetic testing, I think for 2 of them, which does check for certain genetic disorders.
Mhm.
I don't think so. I think the goal is, I'm not saying my personal goal, but I think like the medical world's goal is
Yeah.
that I think one day they would prenatally, or they could have the option to prenatally test for everything, or maybe once a child is born, you could check their blood just to see if they're going to have anything develop. But currently right now it's not on that, whatever that standard prenatal genetic test is. I know they have from the time when I had my first to my third, because ironically I didn't do the genetic testing when I was pregnant with Lucy, but it wouldn't have shown it. But from my first to my third boys, they had changed the genetic testing, like what it would find in that prenatal test. So it was a lot more things for the time I had my third, because in theory I had him after Lucy. So there was a little bit of tiny bit of concern of, oh, should we be checking to see if he'll have Grin2b? But again, since it wasn't passed down from us, it was like the chances of our third child having it were like something like less than 1%. So we would have had to specifically, it was some test they would have had to do to specifically look for it. Yeah. So no, it's not currently on a specific, like a current prenatal genetic test. But like if you had a concern afterwards. So like when my third child was born, after he was born, I could have had him tested to see if he was going to develop it, or if he had it. But we didn't do that. So, but I do think some parents will do that.
Yeah. Okay.
For
That's
sure.
really helpful to know. So now that we know a little bit about Grin2b, what it is, and about the foundation, let's talk a little bit about our most recent thing that we did. So obviously we're here today and we're talking because we have decided to partner. So Revive Jewelry, my company, has partnered with Grin2b Foundation to raise money for the foundation and to try to help, bring awareness as well as raise money for research. So the way that we're doing that is through a special release, which is, it's right now, I'm not wearing it, but Liz, you might be wearing it, I don't know. It's, yeah,
it's
so Liz is wearing a necklace. So it's a little square. It's hard to see on here, but there are definitely links in my bio and all that stuff, and the Grin2b stuff profile has them as well. But it's the building block necklace, and there's matching earrings that go with it. And they were inspired by a very special family. So I'm going to let Liz tell us about that family and what inspired this project.
Yeah. So the mom of the family, Marlena, I met her last September at a conference. It was a conference for Grin2b and the related Grin disorders. And it was a really awesome conference hosted by one of our lead researchers, where we got to hear from, a huge panel of researchers. So it was very exciting and hopeful. And so, I get to meet a lot of Grin2b parents through these conferences. And, I met Marlena and we only spoke briefly, but she told us about her daughter, Rhea, who at the time I think was only maybe 1.5. And we just connected, and then we kept in touch afterwards. And her amazing family, they are from, oh my God, am I going to get this wrong? They're from Mississippi, I want to say. And I apologize if I got that wrong. Pretty sure it's Mississippi. They ended up doing a fundraiser for us last November. They organized a walk with their entire community, and it was super amazing and very successful. It's a lot of money for us, and we were so grateful. And so, we kept in touch. She really wanted to fundraise more, so we were sharing ideas back and forth. And then she contacted me in January, Marlena, and told me that her daughter Rhea had unfortunately passed away. And she was not even quite 2 yet. So it was very shocking on many levels, because A, she was so young, and B, Rhea is the first child that we know of with Grin2b that has passed away. It's kind of a thing that we've all kind of clung to. is that, you know, it's really generally not considered to be a degenerative disease. So it is pretty unusual. But yeah, it really was very heartbreaking, and we were just so sad and shocked. And, you know, my husband and the rest of the board of directors, you know, we knew we wanted to do something special to honor Rhea. But we didn't know what to do, and we tossed around a lot of ideas. And I'm super picky and I really overthink things. So like every idea I had, I was like, no, it just doesn't feel right. Like it has to feel right. And then somehow like your Revive jewelry just popped into my head one day, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Like, this is, you know, such a great way to, you know, commemorate Grin2b and Rhea. So then I just contacted you, and we went from there. And I know, you know, I've been in touch with Marlena ever since then. We sent her one of the necklaces, and she was very, very grateful. And, you know, it was the least we could do. And I would like to do obviously a lot more.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Well, Rhea is obviously a very special little girl, and I never had the chance to meet her or her mom, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity to sort of immortalize her and honor her and do this special project to also, you know, bring hope and awareness and strength to all the other parents and maybe even the kids, you know, who want to wear the necklace, if they can, to, you know, have that strength and that unity. And that's kind of what the whole idea of the building blocks necklace is that these building blocks to sort of build on top of one another, to create like a stable structure. So your community builds to create a strong community. And then also the research sort of pieces build on top of one another so that we can continue to learn more and hopefully have a brighter future for this diagnosis. So thank you for sharing that story with me and for having me be part of this. It's been a huge honor. So very grateful.
Thank you.
So let's go back to some of the Grin2b successes. Can you tell us, I know the foundation and the whole actual diagnosis is very new, but can you just tell us a little bit about some of the successes that you guys have seen?
Yes. Successes, you mean like within the world of Grin2b, or?
Yeah, like research or moving forward with your cause or foundation. The walk is a great example of that, you know,
Yeah.
money for research and stuff. So,
yeah, I would say research is definitely a big success. So, you know, it's funny because we've come so far in 6 years, you know, from having, I always look at it from my perspective because it's really all I can do. But, you know, from coming from having absolutely nothing and having to build from there, you know, and when I started building this, you know, I had no experience building a nonprofit, or I have no background in that. You know, as you said before, I worked in TV.
Yeah.
As a theater major.
I think this is a better choice. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. We won't go into too much detail of my background, but it doesn't quite match this. It's definitely not what I expected, you know, and I, you know, currently work for a marketing company. So, you know, this was not something that was a perfect fit for me. Like, yes, let's do this. But it's just a thing that happened because I just felt like someone had to do something. And honestly, I kept looking around and thinking, okay, well, someone else will come around and start a nonprofit. Because what happened was I started to get to know people in my community, my nearby community, who I became friends with people whose children had different genetic disorders. And those genetic disorders had nonprofits supporting them. And I was like, oh, I want what you guys have. I want a nonprofit. I want, you know, like a fundraiser that I can go to or organize. So it was really born out of kind of just plain old jealousy. And then honestly, I was just waiting for someone else to have the idea. And after a while, I was like, no one's going to have this idea. I guess I have to do it. So, I mean, that was it. I just got tired of waiting for someone else to come save us, and just decided, I guess, be very, very unfortunate, very begrudgingly. I will be totally honest. Very begrudgingly, I was like, well, I guess we got to save ourselves and find our own solutions to, this problem. But it's not simple, like I can't just raise millions of dollars and try to find a cure. It's a very complicated process once you actually get in the weeds and you're like, oh, a nonprofit. Oh, there's all these steps you have to take. And, research is very complicated and very takes time. Change is going to happen slowly over time. Even with millions of dollars, you're not going to magically cure a disease overnight. So sorry, I think I've gotten a little off tangent here. So anyways, back to our successes.
Yeah.
So our successes is, I think, truly how far we've come and the community we've built, because it's a very empowering community. So, I think what happens most is someone gets diagnosed and then they, go to our website, we have a private Facebook group for parents only. It's very, it's closed, so they can say whatever they want in there. And so parents request to join, and then they're just immediately welcomed. And it's just a really nice place you can go to ask advice, and there's people in there from all over the world. So at any time of day, you can find someone who can most likely answer a question for you. Or even if they don't have an answer, they can say, I understand what you're going through. I'm sorry that you feel this way, or I'm sorry it sucks, but we're here for you. And so we're very proud of the community we've built, and everyone has really embraced each other, and the bee has really become a symbol of our community in a way that I could not have predicted. I just chose it because, I don't know, it was called Grin2b, and I just wanted to have a nice, friendly, inviting logo, and it was just like, bee. This is what we'll go for. And people have really latched onto it. People have bee tattoos now. Everyone's really into bee jewelry, any sort of bee thing. And I did not create this, but someone in our community at some point years ago started calling our children bees. So now it's like a new person joins the group, and I think they must read through the messages, and they just immediately they're like, oh, hi, I'm, we're a new family. This is my bee, so-and-so. And I'm just always like, wow, you've really picked up on the bee culture so quickly. So it's really cool to see, because I didn't intend it to be that way. It just kind of organically happened. And then other successes, I mean, we've had some really successful programs that we've started. We did a conference 2 years ago in 2018. We hosted our first Grin2b conference, and that was very cool and very empowering. And then we were supposed to have our second conference this summer. That has unfortunately obviously been canceled due to COVID, but we've rescheduled it for next summer. And then we have a grant program, a research grant program. We gave out our first research grant for a Grin2b project last year, and we're just about to launch our next grant cycle. So starting June 1st, actually, we'll open up an application where researchers can apply to us to get funds for a specific Grin2b project. And so we'll be able to award that research grant later this year. And then we have another special program that we're about ready to launch, but I can't really share the specifics just yet because we're finalizing it. But it's a really cool program that will help families, and help the families specifically. And we will be launching that in the next couple of weeks.
That's awesome. I love all of that stuff. I love, like you said, you don't understand until you start kind of getting into the nonprofit world. So funding research and that kind of thing and doing the grants, it's amazing. So thank you for doing that and putting in the time to do all of that. I know it's not easy and it's not your full-time job. So bless you. Okay. So what is the most important thing for parents and the Grin2b community to know?
I think the most important thing for them to know, this might be piggybacking a little bit on what I just said, but I think the most important thing is that there is hope. You know, I think people are still very understandably shocked when they get this diagnosis for their child. You know, and again, it might depend on what age the child is. Some could be babies, some could be, you know, in their teens, and maybe it's not as shocking when they're in their teens. But so understandably, it's still very shocking, even with us having the website and people being able to come for support. It's still, I think you just don't ever expect that your child will get diagnosed with a rare disorder. But there is hope because there is so much interest in studying Grin2b from researchers, which is actually really cool, because now that I've kind of been in this world, this rare disease world for a while, and I've networked with so many other different rare disease organizations, you know, I can see that some of them, you know, have to fight a little bit to get noticed, because, you know, understandably, it can be a little tricky to find scientists that want to study a disorder that maybe only affects, you know, a couple dozen kids or even a couple hundred kids. But Grin2b, I think, because it's part of this larger family of Grin disorders, and because it has to do with brain function, there is actually a lot of interest from scientists that want to study it. So it's just now we're kind of getting organized and mobilized with other parent organizations in the Grin community and the researchers, and we're kind of trying to build out this network to be a little bit more organized and kind of make a plan for going forward. So there is a lot of hope, because there's a lot of things coming in the years to come. It's not going to be overnight. Like, I think it's important for them to be hopeful but realistic. And then also, we can't be passive. That's kind of like the big thing, is that if you want change, you have to, you know, be a part of it and help create it. You know, like I said before, I was kind of waiting around for a while to be like, oh, someone else will start a foundation. Surely it can't be me. But then eventually I was like, I guess it'll be me. I'll just figure this out. But so we need more people like that, you know, and it doesn't have to be, obviously not everyone's going to take the time to start a foundation, because it is really a large commitment, especially when you have another job and children. But we just need people to chip in and participate in whatever way they can, which I think we'll talk about in one of your next questions.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, you're a change maker. You're like the definition of the change maker, which is what I always call my followers, because like you said, you can't be passive. You have to take action, and your action can be as little as donating directly to Grin2b Foundation, which you can do on their website, and you can find that through their Instagram as well. So that's something very easy for you to do today that can make you a change maker. And if you're interested, you can also purchase a piece of Revive jewelry and make change that way. So you can get the Grin2b set that way. But let's talk really quickly about any like resources or recommendations that you have for the Grin2b community, where they can find that, and what there is out there for them.
Yeah, so we have a lot of resources on our website. We are very, very proud of our resources, because they're all very just accessible to parents. So again, like, I have no science background, none. I wrote the website from scratch, and I really had to just learn some of the basics of genetics, and it was very hard. And I had a genetic counselor help me kind of, you know, make sure I was saying things correctly, but, you know, it was really intentional to write it break it down step by step, from very simple, you know, simple and easy to understand, and not stressful. We didn't want it to be stressful for parents. We don't want them to feel like, oh, you have to get a crash course in genetics, or you have to go back to school and become a neuroscientist. You know, if you want to, go for it, but I think most of us don't want to do that. So we have a whole resources tab on our website, and, you know, we have a resources page that's full of recommended books and articles and websites. We have 2 different pages on genetics, like just the basics of genetics, and then also genetics and how it relates to Grin2b. We have our About Grin2b page, which has a really cool Grin2b symptoms infographic, which lists like the most common symptoms, and then a huge laundry list of additional symptoms that could happen. We have a Grin2b map. It's an interactive map on our website where, so it's like a map of the world, and you can go in and you can plot your child's location. Like, you're not putting in identifying information, so it's all very, safe to do. But it's just kind of a quick way for someone to glance at a map and see, oh, I live in Michigan. There's 5 other families that live in Michigan. That's cool. And you can go to the parent support group and, ask, hey, who are these families that live in Michigan? Or people could reach out to us if they want to be private about it. And we could look at the back end and see if we can connect you with the other families that live near you. I know we have more. Oh my gosh, what else? We have a podcast that actually my husband Phil hosts. He doesn't do it very often, but I think he's done like 4 or 5 where he's interviewed Grin2b families, or he's interviewed a couple different Grin2b researchers. So those are really fun and informative. And then, we have a blog. So we have a bunch of different blog entries on there. And actually our most recent blog post was from March. We had our awareness week in March, and we had a cool blog, like Q&A that we did with one of our Grin2b researchers, where we just kind of took some of the frequently asked questions that parents have in our parent support group, and we asked the expert. There's a lot of questions about medications people can try, and the futures of clinical trials, and signing up for Grin2b rare disease registries. So yeah, so that's really cool. Yeah, I think that's all our little cheat sheet over here.
Yeah.
I think that's all our
That's a lot of resources,
resources.
and
Yeah.
that's amazing. It sounds like most of them live on the website, which is Grin2b Foundation.org, right?
Grin2b.org. Yeah, just Grin2b. Yeah.
Sorry. So Grin2b.org is where you're going to find most of those resources. And I'm assuming if someone is suspecting that their child may have this, it would be a good place for them to start and kind of poke around on the website. So we sort of talked about it already, but if anyone is watching and they want to get involved with Grin2b, what is the best way for them to get involved if they're interested in helping out?
Yeah, so again, if you go to the website, grin2b.org, we have a Get Involved, like little drop down. And so on our Get Involved page, there's a list of things, and it's it's simple things from just supporting Grin2b Foundation when you shop at Amazon. If you go to smile.amazon.com, it'll let you choose your charity of choice, and then I think it's like 0.05% or something goes to the foundation every time you shop, which I know we're all shopping at Amazon. So that's very helpful. And then, we have awareness t-shirts, we have coffee mugs, we have tote bags, we have a lot of cool awareness apparel. We have hats. We're going to have masks soon. So purchasing any of our awareness apparel or goodies is helpful, or the jewelry. And then fundraising is a good way to get involved. It's tricky right now, obviously, because of what's going on with COVID. We've had to cancel. We had several, 3-ish in-person fundraisers that we had to cancel for this year, and so we're having to kind of think outside the box and get real creative with our fundraising. So it would definitely be helpful for other people to do that as well. We had someone recently who is a Zumba instructor, and she's doing virtual Zumba classes, and so one of her recent classes, she donated the proceeds to us. So things like that. I think sometimes people don't know what to do. They can't think of ideas, or they just feel overwhelmed, like, well, I can't, I'm not going to be able to raise that much money. It's not going to make a difference. But, all these little fundraisers, even if they all, just bring in $100 or $200, they still, add up to a lot. And then every little bit helps. And then in September, we are organizing a virtual walk/run. That's going to be called Be Active. B as in bee. We like our bee puns around here. And so we'll have a website that people can sign up on, so they can make their own walk page and collect donations. And then we'll just kind of have to see where we are in September with social distancing guidelines. I'm imagining it's going to be different in different parts of the world. Even within the US, it'll probably be different. So it'll be up to people to decide, like, are you doing your walk in a group or 6 feet apart or solo? And that it's going to be the entire month of September. So people will have the flexibility to pick which day they want to, organize their walk for in their neck of the woods. So creative fundraisers. And then for families, so really anyone can fundraise for us, obviously, but for families, the number one thing they can do to get involved is to participate in research. And we have several researchers and organizations that are collecting data right now on Grin2b patients. And they just need more data, because as I said, we know of maybe 250 patients around the world, it's probably a little bit more than that. And they need like as many of those people as possible to submit their data, because really, like, we're kind of in this place right now where we can't move forward onto the next step of like determining, okay, let's try this drug. Let's do a clinical trial on this drug because it'll probably help, 30% of these patients. And then this drug will probably help this other 30%. Like, we can't even move forward on things like that unless we have more data on the patients to know which drugs would potentially be effective. It's just, we can't really make any progress forward without data is like the foundation we have to build everything off on. And so it's not fun to do, because basically participating in these studies, anyone can do it because none of them require in-person visits at this time. Okay. So, anyone can just take an evening, a chunk of their time, and just, you have to go online, or you may have to fill out some forms, answer some questions online. And, to be honest, like, it sucks because it's going to ask questions about your child, what they can and can't do. And I mean, when I take these surveys, most of the time it's just answering, no, she can't do this. No, she can't do that. No. You're answering no to 1,000 questions and you feel really depressed. But it's just necessary. It's just like a necessary evil. We just got to get through, eat a box of chocolates, drink a glass of wine, drink responsibly, and just answer the questions, because it's so, so, so important to, we just can't change anything for our kids. We can't move research forward without the foundation of just basic data.
Yeah. So they can go ahead and do that on the website, right? They'll find how to do that on the website on Grin2b.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we have, I think the tab is called research, and then you click on that and there's like a drop down, and it's going to list a bunch of different research studies or Grin2b registries that people can, you have to click on each one and kind of go through each one and see where each one's at and how to sign up for them. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So you need the information so that you can continue building those research findings and everything. So that's awesome. So if anybody can do that, that would be great. And then always just donating, donate $1 if you can, $5. So I usually am of the belief that every penny counts. So awesome. Well, is there anything else that you want us to know today that we haven't talked about yet?
I don't think so. I mean, I guess maybe I could just say, I don't know how many Grin2b families will actually watch this. Hopefully a bunch. But, it is just kind of speaking to where we are in the world right now with COVID and being stuck at home. And I know it might be slightly different now because things are starting to slowly open back up. But in general, school's done, and now we're facing a long summer, and so all our kiddos are going to be home. And I know some kids have been okay with the change and other kids have not. My daughter has not been particularly happy during this time at home. She's really missing her support system at school, teachers, therapists, aides, friends. She misses her friends a lot. Zoom classes don't really translate. It just doesn't really cut it for her. So she really needs that in-person connection.
Mhm.
So she's been sad. So we've had some challenges with that we've had to kind of work with our pediatrician, kind of navigate through. So I guess I just wanted to say for any other parents that, are dealing with something similar that, I feel you.
Yeah.
This time sucks. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do about it. It's what it is. I think in some ways, families of kids with or rare genetic disorders or any kind of, disability, maybe we're a little bit accustomed to a situation like this where you get the rug pulled out from under you and all of a sudden everything you thought you knew about your life is different. So from that angle, we were able to kind of be like, okay, yes, we have to just go with the flow and figure out a new plan. But yeah, I just wanted to say, I guess, a message to parents that, this time does kind of suck and we just have to do the best we can to, manage our children because it is very disruptive for them to lose all their support systems. And, we just have to love them and support them as much as we can from home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful ending message. And I'm sure that there's more support to be found from other parents in the Facebook group too. So
Yeah, for sure.
that.
Yeah. Oh, that is the one thing I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
You just reminded me
Mhm.
is that a couple, like once a month, we've only done it a few times so far. We have hosted like a Zoom happy hour for parents, other Grin2b parents.
Cool.
So, I mean, the Facebook group is still a great way to connect, but sometimes you still want that in-person connection and you want to be able to just vent, have a little chat. So yeah, so we've done it twice now. We'll probably keep doing it on a monthly basis. So if anyone is looking to join that, just keep following our social media pages and we'll make an announcement for the next one.
Awesome. So on Instagram, you can follow Grin2b Foundation at Grin2b Foundation. And if you are not following my page already, you can follow me at Revive Jewelry. And for more information about Grin2b Foundation, you can either find them on their Instagram or you can find their website, which is grin2b.org. So Liz, thank you so much for doing this today and for coming and talking to us. You're an amazing person. Thank you for starting this foundation and for being such a wonderful example of strength and grace and support for everybody out there. So appreciate you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for the kind words. Thank you for doing the work that you do.
Oh, thanks.
It's a really cool idea to do charitable jewelry. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I will talk to you soon and have a great day.
Okay. Bye, Nikki.
Bye.
Thank you.